Good afternoon. It's 1:30. It's time for the Tech Talk Show with me, Kazeem, this afternoon. And today we're going to be looking at AI still on the show this afternoon. So the topic for this afternoon is future of AI on Azure. That's the future of Azure AI is what we're going to be talking about on the show today. And I've got Mark on the show with me this afternoon to walk us through today's topic. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Kazeem. So glad to be here.
Yes. So is it morning, is it evening, or is it afternoon where you're at?
Well, it's morning for me here in the U.S., but we are, ready to do this show, and so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So let's kick things off with an introduction, Mark. So who is Mark? Let the listeners learn a little bit more about you.
Sure. So my name is Mark Tabladillo. I am a cloud solution architect working for Microsoft. And in my role, each one of those words means something. First of all, cloud, we're working in Azure, which is the name of Microsoft's cloud. The second word, solution. So what I do is I help our customers create and build solutions. And then the third word, architect. I also help in the planning from the very beginning. So sometimes we have customers that are very experienced, and then sometimes we have customers who are very new, and maybe they're new to AI, and maybe they're new to the cloud. But wherever their customers are, my job, along with my team, is we pour in the best of our knowledge to help them get going.
Thank you, Mark. So let's jump straight in now. AI, that term AI on Azure, is this something that is different from the generic AI that we know? Can you help us with if there's any similarity or if it's still the same AI that we know?
Right. So if artificial intelligence mostly is these days being driven by open source. And there's so many projects out there that are in public domain and available to so many people. Languages like Python and frameworks like Spark or PyTorch. And these technologies are all fully supported by Microsoft. And we see so many people, even at Microsoft, making contributions to these open source projects. Sometimes I've made some minor ones, but really some people at Microsoft, that's a lot of their job is to contribute to open source and then bring that back. And then so what Microsoft adds on top of what's generally available is a framework for running them on Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud, and then also working with other technologies that Microsoft has developed, either ourselves as a company or with our partners.
Okay. So since we're talking about something that has to do with Microsoft here, generally people will expect it to be easy to use. So I want to check with you, is Azure AI something that is easy for especially beginners now to work with? Or is it, are there low code, no code or low code experience with Azure AI?
Sure. So I'll answer both questions. So I'll answer the low code and then we'll answer, how easy it is. But yes, there are many low code solutions inside Azure technology. Sometimes we have wizards that will help people do many tasks. And sometimes they don't require any coding. Now, they do require choices. So they do require somebody to make decisions. But what will happen is the environment will guide the person in using or making those decisions as they go through. And then on the backside, there will be code base, and a lot of the technologies that Microsoft has behind these wizards are actually generating code. And so Kazeem, you're of course you being an expert now in Microsoft, and by the way, congratulations for your recent Microsoft MVP award. That's a super big deal. I used to be in the program myself years ago, but it really is a big deal. And but when you talk about people who are professionals or maybe at your level of an MVP, we will want to see the code, even if it's generated by a wizard, because sometimes we will need to make changes or modifications. So there are some solutions like that. Some of them, for example, to get started for AI, some of them are now being embedded into Power BI, which is one of the first places I would point people to using some of Microsoft's technologies. And by the way, Power BI now is such a large product that I don't even know all the pieces. Like every day there's something new. It's just it's a whole ecosystem by itself. But let's go to the earlier question about being easy. So what I think is so helpful is that Microsoft has really good documentation. And today there's a feature called Microsoft Learn, where people can go on the website and be guided through these short lessons on how to use Microsoft technology. So, it's so hard in and a word picture I like to use is climbing the stairs. So if you're going from the first floor to the second floor, it's really broken down into 20 steps maybe. So you walk up and you have 20 steps so you can go to the next floor. If you had to do that all at once, I mean, I can't jump just one story by myself. All right, I don't care how long I live. I'm never going to be able to jump to the second story. But when you take any big task and you break it down into small parts, then people can understand it and they can see it. And what's so helpful too is the community that Microsoft has made, and so many user groups. And by the way, I know about your involvement in Meetup and producing those events. And I've produced events. I continue to produce events. Those are places to go and they're free. And we're talking about ways to learn for free. And I always say this, there is always a way to learn something about Microsoft for free. Yes, you can pay, and there's so many great training courses. There's so many great books out there, but start with free first. And Kazeem, you know about these things. We give away things for free, and we encourage people to do that, to do those paths that are out there to help people learn.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Mark. I want to also ask this question, Mark, to get clarity, on this question, especially for the student listening in right now. Data is an integral part of AI, right? So can you please help us understand the role of data, or that the data has to play when we talk AI? So what's that connect? How do we connect the dots between AI and data?
Right, and this is such a great question. And Kazeem, we've both seen this in industry. When you talk to the top business analysts, they talk about a data industry that's larger than the oil industry. And I think it can be measured now in dollars or any currency, any currency worldwide, Nigeria or any country. It's so important to know that we can put a dollar value on data. And one story I like to tell is when you look at many of the tech billionaires today, a lot of what they are doing is collecting data. And it doesn't matter if it's Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. Some of these top tech billionaires, what they're really doing behind the scenes is they're figuring out ways to collect value data before they apply artificial intelligence to them. Then once they have this sophisticated data, that's where the value can come from. And I like to make this analogy that the AI, or even is true for machine learning, it's like a recipe. And if we were to make food, we could get a recipe from a top chef, and the recipe itself doesn't mean a lot unless we have the good food. We have to have the good food with the fresh ingredients, and you know what I'm saying? So you have to have, and fresh food is like the data, and the data needs to be fresh too. And we can't work with data maybe that's 10 years old, but we want to have data that's new, that's recent, that's fresh. And just like when we can taste food and we can know that it's really prepared well, to me, working as a data scientist and even working in AI, you can still have that same type of impression where you can know that it's fresh, or you can know that it's relevant.
Okay, okay. We'll need to do a short break right now, and we'll be back in just a little bit. welcome back. It's still the Tech Talk Show with me, Kazeem, this afternoon, and Mark is still with me on the show today. The next question that I want to ask you, Mark, is people really don't realize that we're using AI in every aspect of our lives today, right? So can you walk us through some of those examples of how we put AI to use or how we connect with AI in our everyday lives today?
That's a great question. And for so many students, people who are new to AI, one of the key things, like you said, is being able to identify it so that we can understand how it's being used. And one of the products in the Microsoft stack that I like is Azure Cognitive Search. And one thing I want to talk about search might be the #1 use of the internet. We're always on the internet looking for things. And behind the scenes, these AI technologies are behind all the major search engines that are there. And sometimes they're there to index documents, and increasingly they're being used to scrape documents or things like video assets and tag them and add categories. And sometimes they're used like a bot is used to be able to go search for something. And so we'll have these guided experiences. And even on the Microsoft website, when someone goes to look for technology help, there's a bot that will help them through that experience and interact with the individual. It will have some sort of natural language processing, and behind the scenes, it's not important to specifically code for some sort of query, but the AI bots now will know a lot about language and also many world languages. And we know it's beyond English. Many people speak English, but many people speak their own native language. And we're seeing now an expansion and explosion where people can use their native language to both either accept or deliver results. So these are some of the areas where AI has made a difference in the area of language.
Okay. Matt, do you ever think that we're going to get to that point where humans will start to build general AI now? I mean, AI that will be able to set their own objectives, let's say. Do you think that time is approaching?
Well, I feel like a lot of people think about AI in the future as driven by science fiction, and we've often seen robots that would appear in movies, everything from Star Trek to Star Wars, and many of these famous science fiction series, robots are portrayed a certain way. But the kind of AI that people are working on, they don't appear necessarily in human form. I mean, Azure is not humanized or connected that way. And when we talk about the general challenges for AI, one of the challenges for general AI is, first of all, being able to have what I would consider as an imagination. First of all, being able to imagine something that's not there. And when we go back to the idea of data, AI is very data driven today. And even when we have AI that's able to compose music or compose writing, or some AI now can compose paintings. So they're like art forms, but really they're just combinations of things it's already seen. And they fall short of what people in general are able to do, and that is be able to make something brand new from scratch that doesn't necessarily exist. Now, that being said, that there are amazing advantages still to using AI. And one of the major, I mentioned art right now. One of the major projects that Microsoft has worked on is working with the Metropolitan Museum of Art to be able to digitize their art holdings. Well, that's so super helpful because now more people have access to the art. And the goal there is not to replace the art because they still want people to come maybe to New York City and see it. But now it makes it much more accessible for scholars or just for average people, new people to art, to be able to see this information. And that's the promise of AI. The promise of AI is to be able to make information available to more people and also to collectively build things. So I like to think about what can a community do to make AI really represent that community?
So what do you see now as the future of AI generally, and specifically now Microsoft AI? That's AI on Azure.
Okay, so generally, let's talk about in general. Some of the technologies, we talked about search, and there's going to be even more people wanting to work on text technologies. And I could talk about in general some of the projects I'm currently working on. There's so many organizations that have decades of documents that are not in digital format, and they want to be able to digitize them. And why am I telling your listeners this? Because there's so many documents in so many countries that are not available through digital means, and now these technologies are making it economically possible to get those, to unlock that information and make it available to a wider audience. So we're going to see people creating businesses around just text. And then we're also going to see people creating businesses around the area of photographs and even for video. And these, again, are assets that people have. Maybe they're old film. There's old film out there, and some people will. And I have a neighbor, by the way. She said her daughter, as a young adult, and now she's working for a company that is what they do. They're digitizing assets, and not that we couldn't do it before, but the advantage of AI is AI can do things such as identify what an image is, identify objects in an image. Well, that's brand new. And I'm waiting for the next generation of, today people search for videos. Well, how about being able to search for a video and be able to look for a specific type of object? Like, show me the videos that have a Toyota Camry. And that's a different type of search. It might not even be a movie about Toyota Camry, but it's still possible to now build those types of structures. But the question will be, on the use case. And I've seen people now wanting to do that. Now, in terms of Microsoft specifically, Microsoft's a company that stands behind, for example, responsible AI. So what we'd want to do is we want to bring a message to consumers that when people partner with us, and even the customers I deal with, we want to do it in a way that's legal for the jurisdiction, and then also is responsible to the communities that it serves. So we have guidelines around that general idea, but then in specific, we want, as far as the cloud, to share information in a way that's secure and a way that's responsible. So we have, for people to put and to entrust Microsoft with their digital assets, we want people to know that it's going to be in a place where it will be safe and secure. It'll be protected from hackers, and it will be also shareable with everyone that someone would want to bring it in a group. And if they bring it into a technology like Microsoft Teams, and you have partners and you're working together maybe on some sort of cultural preservation project, then that team would want to know that all the hours that they put into the project are not going to be lost. And I know many people who've been in IT, we've had computers that die, and it always seems like it's at the wrong time that the hard drive dies. And even for a good brand, you take care of your machine and you never drop it, and suddenly it dies. So we don't want people to be stuck with a normal equipment failure. We want them to be able to continue with their work. So many people put so many hours into some of these projects, and we want to, as far as Microsoft, we want to make that available at the lowest possible price point. But then, like I said, in a way too that people feel it's secure, it's responsible, and that they understand it. Because you know what, if people don't understand enough about the technology, it's really hard to make a commitment. And we even, there's an everyday example I have. Sometimes when you're getting together with a group of friends and you want to watch a movie, you'll have a discussion because you're going to be sitting down and you say, okay, if I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, if I'm going to go to a movie, I want to talk about which one we want to go to. Well, if we're going to put that much effort maybe into seeing a movie or even to going to a restaurant, Maybe people are going to spend weeks or months on an AI project. Yes, I'm the type of person that Microsoft makes available. So before people spend a lot of time investing in these projects, that they understand where the effort's going, that it's secure, that it's responsible. And as all the new technologies come out, Microsoft is there to provide the face of working with people. Just dealing with open source can be tricky because there's really no tech support desk for a general project like Spark. So it is, good to have people like you and me, Kazeem, who are involved in the community, and we're always, for example, willing and able to answer questions. But sometimes the journey takes a little bit more, and it becomes a full-time job, and that's the type of job I have at Microsoft. So again, when you talk about future careers, I think there will be careers for people who can assemble projects like this, who understand. And by the way, can I mention our Azure Architecture Center? We have a place on the web where we have so many examples of projects, and even projects that are ready to demo or do, and more are added every day. So they give a good example, especially for young people thinking about careers in information technology. To be able to assemble something or to do something new, there's going to be a lot of work there.
Yes. But I don't want us to close the show without talking about learning AI now, especially for those students listening in right now. I know you mentioned a few of those earlier on, but I'd just like you to reiterate what research.
Right. So I would go to the Microsoft website and look up Microsoft Learn, and that's in our documentation area. But there are many short courses there that are free. They're short, and it's a place where you can learn more about Microsoft and also even work in a sandbox environment. But beyond that, for the students who are serious about perhaps getting a career, we have Azure certifications that are available. And by the way, I learned the other day, if you're a college student, you're able to get certifications at a lower cost. So cost does vary by country. So you would want to check out what those costs are. But the Azure certifications would enable someone to even get employment in a certain area. And I think now with so many technologies, it's even more possible, as long as you have a good internet connection, to maybe even find a job working remotely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us on today's episode of the show. We've learned a lot from you today, Mark, already. So I think this is how much time is going to permit us on today's episode of the Tech Talk. Please feel free to have a rewatch of this on YouTube. So it's the Tech Talk Wednesday with Kazeem on YouTube, and you can also watch the previous episode on the YouTube channel as well. So any last words now before we say goodbye, Mark?
Oh, Kazeem, I just enjoyed being on this group, and certainly enjoy people to follow your show. And by the way, follow you on Twitter. You're now famous because you're an MVP, and there's very few MVPs, by the way. You'll have to have maybe some other guests from that program to explain what that is. But it's so exciting to see that award, that official award from Microsoft, recognizing the service that you do for so many people.
Okay. Thank you very much, man. So you've heard it, so let's do this again another time. So it's bye-bye from myself.
We will. Take care, Kazeem.
Thank you.